Before we dive there, I do want to think a little bit about principles of adult learning. If you are familiar with Elena Aguilar, one of the things that she does is she talks a little bit about what do adults need when we are in learning spaces. And so she has a few insights. Number one, she says that adults, they're learners too, and they must feel safe to learn. I'm tying that to that trust piece that we were just talking about a couple of moments ago, but I need to feel safe. I need to feel like it's not a gotcha scenario. I need to feel like it's an okay place for me to take some risks and try some things out. Adults need to feel safe. We also understand that adult learners come with learning histories. Like our kids, they've had lots of experiences behind the scenes. Some of those experiences have gone well. Some of those experiences haven't necessarily been the way they would want them to be. But we have to understand what their history is. We have to talk with them about their history so we understand what they're looking for in our experiences together. Another thing that Elena speaks of is the fact that just like all of our kids, adults want agency in their learning as well. And so when we think about supporting teachers, we need to be looking at what are they looking for specifically? What is it that they're asking for? Sometimes in a group or a population, you're going to see different people take different pathways. We want to be acknowledging the fact that one size PD is like one size instruction in our classrooms. It doesn't always work. So when we're working in lab sites, being mindful to who is going to be okay with me sitting next to them and whispering in versus who wants to just let me be the fly on the wall and I need to come back around and talk to them at a later time. Knowing who my adults are in the space and knowing what they want is going to be important. Adults also need to understand more about the why. Why is it that we're doing this work together? Understanding why is a really important thing. And I often tell my staff when you're working with kids or teachers, you want to think what, why, and how, right? When you look at a teaching point, it's like, what am I going to teach you? How do you do it? Why am I doing this work? Right? For buy-in to happen, that why needs to be there. So being mindful of supporting everyone with a purpose inside of the lab site time will be really critical. Another thing, have a belief that learners want to learn. I say that sort of tongue in cheek. I think sometimes we're like, we get frustrated. We put up walls. We don't know why people aren't moving the work forward. We're like, oh, they just don't want. Well, actually, people do want. They do want to get better. And so we want to think about best intentions and supporting teachers accordingly. We also need to understand that just like we need time to process and internalize, providing our learners, providing our adults time to practice and internalize their learning will be a really important thing. Sometimes it can't just be, I did it, now go do that. Sometimes teachers need a moment of process time in before a demonstration and trying it out. Sometimes you're going to give them feedback and they need time to process and think that through before they try to do something else. So being mindful of the time for practice is going to be really important. And lastly, oftentimes what can get us over the hump when especially working with resistant or lectin adults is to think about how we can come to the table with a problem-centered orientation or approach to learning. And what I mean by that is if we take the focus off of them, the teacher, and put it on, well, what do you notice your kids are doing? What do you notice your kids are needing? Can we do some student-centered or student-focused work in your classroom? Oftentimes, when we come to the table and we say, my kids are having a hard time with stamina and writing right now, then now that's a problem I can take. We can go into our lab site with this sort of problem in mind and then do some collaborative think tanking work to see how we could address that problem. So when we're taking in any kind of lab site time, we want to keep these principles to heart and keep these in mind because just like our little learners, our big learners need a lot from us too.